I'm glad you could make it.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Got another episode of Address It here live. We're with Jaton White.
Yes,
Jaton White.
yes.
Jaton White is running for school board at large. So she has, what is it, 1 or 2 seats to fill?
There are 5 seats, or excuse me, 5 candidates. There are 3 seats.
3 seats
I might
open?
have that a little backwards. Please check the math on Ballotpedia, but I'm running at large.
3 seats open right now?
I think there's 3 seats and 5 candidates. I might have that backwards, but
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
There are 2 at-large seats, and I'm running for one of the at-large seats.
So your name, Jaton White.
Jaton White.
Jaton White for the viewers, you know. So you are school board. How did you get into the school board?
So for the last 10 years, I've been actually working with kids, families, and educators in Minneapolis in particular. And so I've learned a lot around the things that they need, that they don't have, and that they want, but they can't get support on. And so I've been a bridge in trying to help folks get the things that they need. And now it just feels like as somebody who's been in the community for more than 10 years, it's my responsibility now to kind of go up a level, to kind of take those learnings and bring them to a larger audience so we can address it across the district.
Yeah. That's why I was going to try to get into your background a little bit. Like, we want to know who you are, you know, where you from, you know, all that good stuff, high school, you know.
Oh, come on, man. We could do this all day. So I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, raised in Omaha, Nebraska, graduated from Omaha North High, which lends me into saying that I am such a North High fan here. And some of that is a little biased because I come from a North High, and North High and Henry are actually in my neighborhood too. So came here. Boo. Yeah. I love all the people in both spaces. I call myself a polar triad, I think is what I said.
There's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as that.
I love everybody. And congratulations, while we're talking about this, to Yusuf, who has now stepped into the administrative position in the school, at the Minneapolis school system. So congratulations to him. But so I was raised in Omaha. Omaha was very much like today's Minneapolis. Lots of chaos, lots of real lived experience around racism and white supremacy, failing school systems, teachers fleeing, primarily the teachers that were helping the students that looked like me didn't look like me, and we were divided by highways. So it's a lot like what we were experiencing here in Minneapolis. And when I was growing up, I remember telling myself, I don't want to raise my kids in this kind of nasty environment where they feel like they have to go to school here or we have to live here. I want them to have friends from all over, right? I didn't want them to just have friends in North Omaha, if you will. So I moved up here in '99 after visiting the Mall of America, and something interesting happened for me. I hadn't done much travel either, so forgive me for anybody who hears this next part. So I came up here to Minnesota and I saw a Native woman with a black man. And then as I kept walking around the mall, I saw African cultures. I don't want to try to call anybody out because I can't tell you who I saw, with like white men. And then, you know, I was just like, wow, this is where
interracial relationship.
Yeah, like I didn't grow up like that. It was not how
that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, not something, but I knew better. I knew it was a thing, right? But it wasn't something we talked about. It wasn't encouraged.
Arkansas, that's the South.
That's the South. So it's even worse down there, right?
Segregated pretty,
Yeah. So like we knew not to cross certain and be in certain places. And I wanted my kids not to have those boundaries. Like if you want to have friends that are from East Africa, I want you to have friends from East Africa. If you want to have friends that are from Nigeria, or not, I'll say Australia, I want you to have friends from Australia. You know, if you want to have friends that are just from Minnesota, I want you to be able to have those friends and not feel like, because I'm black or I identify like this is what I have, I'm limited to. And so move my kids up here for that exposure, and they have friends from like all over the place, right? They've gone to college here and have experienced those things, and they've taught me something with that, right? To be more aware of what I'm giving them in way of stories or history or telling them when we're talking about our core values. And so Minnesota helped me kind of shape a new core value system for my family.
So you've been here about what,
22, 23 years, yeah.
So did you have a school background? Were you working to be a teacher? Or?
No. I wanted to be a social worker. My mama said that don't make no money. A social worker or a nurse, because my mom was a nurse, and she was like, that's not gonna make enough money. And nursing was too hard, as she said, on a black woman. And so she made me go to school for computer engineering. She said, that'll make a lot of money. And it did. I made a lot of money. But there was no passion for that. That's just something, I have this natural ability, this natural thing that God just gives me.
Putting computers together?
I can put them together. I can code it for you. I can do anything but digital design. Like, that's not my thing. Don't call me for that. I mean, I don't do any of this other work anymore anyway, but that was what I did. I helped folks like build their server environments. So back then it was the .com startups. And so we were co-locating different sites and stores and helping them manage that space. But I wasn't fulfilled. I was unhappy. And so I started working in medical and healthcare for United Health Group. And I was like, I'm liking being with the people again, right? Helping people figure out their policies and things of that nature. And then a friend called me and told me about some community work in nonprofit world where I'd never been before. And I was like, that's where I need to be. And that's what led me to running for school board.
So you talk about, mom said there wasn't enough money.
Yeah, she said, listen, she said, no, social workers and folks like that don't make enough money.
Yeah,
and so you got to do something that's going to feed your kids.
So the teachers, they went on strike this year.
Yep.
Over money, over compensation.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. What do you think, you know, how much, I shouldn't say how much, but are teachers underpaid, you know, and what would it look like for them to be fairly paid? For the average teacher, and just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I grew up with the average teacher. My grandmother was my second parent, and she taught for the Nebraska School for the Deaf and Blind. Through retirement, she only retired because she was getting sick. And so education is very, very big deal. And my grandmother was never paid a livable wage. And so we always had to do, my mother pitched in, we lived with my grandmother to kind of offset some of those bills. So teachers historically have never been, when we're talking K-8 or K-12, have historically never been paid enough. And I want to say that I'm going to say this, and I wish it wasn't the truth, but I want to say it's because the United States doesn't value the work of a woman, and that primarily is a position that women hold. Women hold now and have held historically. And we need to do something about that too. There needs to be more men in teaching. If you ask me, if I had it my way, teachers would be the highest paid position in the United States. They are spending more time with kids sometimes than their parents. And they're asked to do things that aren't in their job description. And so if you're going to ask of them that, you need to fairly compensate them so for the time they're losing with their family and the time that they're putting into other people's kids.
Do you know what an average teacher gets?
I actually looked it up this year, and anybody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Minneapolis actually pays, it might be Minnesota, but I'll just say Minneapolis. Minneapolis pays their average salary is actually higher than most of the other states in the United States. So I think it's somewhere around 50 when we talk about our ESPs or our paraprofessionals, and teachers can go all the way up to 6 figures in Minnesota. Yeah.
And that's grade school, high school?
Yeah, I didn't even look up the numbers for it, because you know when you get into like private institutions, obviously those that pay goes up and fluctuates based on experience and degrees held.
So did they come to an agreement? What happened with that?
The only real agreement that they came to, in my opinion, was to adjust the pay for those at the lower pay scale who are most vested in the ESPs or paraprofessional positions. And so they'll get a bump up to about $55,000. But I don't think overall that the demands were actually, all their demands were met, or that they were all delivered in ways to get to a deadline to end the strike. I think there should have been more conversation, and I think...
How did it actually end up ending, though?
They settled on this money amount, this $50,000 livable wage for the paraprofessionals or those that qualify.
Entry?
Pretty much.
You at least get $50,000.
At least get $50,000 in those particular. Yep. I don't think the teachers of color saving their positions and making sure that they are safe. That didn't get addressed. There's a big thing around seniority in Minneapolis as well, and I'm not sure that got addressed as either. I think we have this first in, first out kind of rule, and seniority plays a big part in that, and we're losing quality teachers because of that.
You said first in, first out.
Yeah, it's kind of this, last in, first out. Excuse me, I said it wrong. Last in, first out. So say I was a first-year teacher last year, and I just happen to be black, and there needs to be cuts. I'm going to probably be the first one that gets cut. But
because
what if I'm
the last one in?
Yeah, and it's about tenure, right? But what if I'm the most qualified teacher? You know what I mean? And so how is that equity? And how are we addressing that? And I'm not saying we shouldn't have seniority at all. My grandmother worked till she was retired. She didn't get blessed with seniority, and so there should be some ways to adhere to that. But you can't miss good people.
How do you tell, or how would you tell who is more qualified than the other in a teaching way?
Yeah, that's
because
up to the school leader.
But you cannot be a better teacher.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and then you could be just misaligned. You maybe need to be a specialist, and someone else needs to be maybe the third grade teacher, right? They're not saying there's not a place for you. The school leaders make those decisions on hiring, firing, who's going to be in next year's budget, and who's not, based on the budget that they're given from the school board.
School board leaders. That's who. So that's what I want to know too. As a school board member, what are you responsible for?
Our job is really to govern. So we don't make any decisions. There's no power. Like there's nobody in there going, no, we got to have 30 teachers, and if we don't, then we don't get that kind of power. But we do get the power to govern based on the set of rules that have already been kind of said. These are the rules for Minneapolis Public Schools, and these are the budgets. And so we make decisions on good governance on that, and then we give that to the superintendent, and he makes decisions then in the buildings with the building leaders on what's best for that school. He or she. I'm speaking in he because we currently have, is Ed Graff? No, Ed Graff's gone. I think we have an interim right now.
So besides what you mentioned already, what are some things that you feel like need to be changed in the school system? Like as of now?
Right now, literally, we need to focus on the well-being of the students we're retaining and the teachers that are coming back. They're in a very unhealthy environment. Now, I already talked about lots of teachers and lots of kids' needs are going unmet. That's going to continue. But on top of all that, we're coming off of a strike. We're still in COVID. Our community is probably in the worst crisis of its time. All of those things are going to show up on day one at school. So the first thing we need to be sure is that when people walk in, they feel welcome and loved and valued. So we got to make sure that they're emotionally well. And how can we do that on day one? The other thing that's really important to me is we've gotten into this new design for the district, right? So last year, the new comprehensive district design where the boundaries changed and they wanted to open up, give Northside schools some different access that they hadn't had previously, and so Southside and Southwest schools lost some things. That's not equity, right? I went to a few meetings. I didn't go to all the meetings when they were making these decisions, but I don't feel like we also listened very well to the folks who are our greatest stakeholders. Who are these community members who have now fled, right? People with access and they can move around differently, they're gonna pull their kids because they don't feel safe. So remember I said on first day, what's some of the things we can do? We can start making people feel safe, right?
Safe is just the environment.
Just the environment, right? That shouldn't even cost a lot, right? This summer when teachers and staff are coming back, I would start having conversations around what does school safety mean to you? When you walk in, how do you want to feel? What
so
if kids,
actually in school safety?
Yeah, right? And that starts with eye contact, right? How are we greeting the kids? How are we moving along that day with the kids? And for the leaders, how are you moving with your staff? Do the staff feel safe? And not safe physically, right? That's a whole different type of conversation, but safe like my ideas can be used in this space. I feel safe enough in my classroom that I can lead and be successful with these kids.
So when you talk about safety, things like, I guess, metal detectors or...
I mean, that's a version of safety. I don't know if we need to go there. And I know we have some schools that probably do some of those things. But I think I said to a group recently, it was like, what is community safety? And I said, community safety starts with safe schools, safe, stable schools. When schools are in chaos and they're unsafe, then the community can't be safe. There are no failing school systems in communities that are doing well. So the school system has to do well in order for everything else around it to do well, right? Imagine we lived in Bloomington, wherever Best Buy is, and let's bring Best Buy over here. Let's bring Best Buy and sit it where Cub is. Imagine Best Buy taking up that footprint that it holds down there and completely going bankrupt in our community. How many jobs are lost? How many people's lives are on the line because of that, right? We gotta think of school like business. We don't do well by our kids, our lives are on the line, right? Their lives are on the line. And school safety literally starts with how you're greeted, right? How you talk about school, right? If we need all those other things, that's something as your community, you need to hear from them, right? And then we don't have a lot of money in the school district, so who can we collaborate to make some of those things happen? I'm not saying we need metal detectors. Maybe we just need more bodies, right? To walk around the playground or walk around the outside of the building, knock on people's doors, tell them about the school, right? Invite neighbors in to volunteer. How can we do those things? That will promote community safety and safe schools.
I only mentioned like metal detectors because there were stories, even recently last school year, where it's just incidents where people are getting into the schools. And
I went to a high school. We had metal detectors by the time I graduated.
Yeah. So I'm saying, are you pro that type of stuff in the school environment or against that stuff?
For me, it's what do the parents and the kids and the teachers want, right? Is that going to ultimately, because they're the stakeholders, they have to come in and out of that, right? That's kind of like your home away from home that you're making this decision about. And it shouldn't be me on the school board or even the whoever is running, whoever is the head of the school board, the chair. No one should be making those decisions without talking to the community, right? That's not gonna feel good to everybody, right?
So during COVID, schools, a lot of kids missed a lot of time. They were affected by that. I want to know what you think about that as far as like getting them back on track. Will they ever be back on track? Is that something that, is there something we could do about that, or is that something that's just kind of like it is what it is?
It's definitely not it is what it is. We definitely can and should be doing something about it.
Do you think it had a great effect? Or?
It had a huge impact, but in our kids, especially for our kids, and when I'm talking our kids, I mean Minneapolis in particular, but Minneapolis impacts so many other areas because those kids go to school everywhere too, right? And so those kids we were already failing them. We look at the numbers historically, our kids haven't done well across the state, right? We can tout how well white kids are doing in reading and math, but they're not doing exceptionally well either. And so for COVID to hit and then to take away for some kids that routine, that was devastating, right? It also upset families. How can they have a routine of getting up and going to work when now the kids can't go to school? We learned during COVID that how important school was to just the functioning of the nation, right? If kids can't go to school, parents can't go to work. And so with all that, parents had to do things that they weren't accustomed to doing, like staying home and teaching, because teachers may have not been available or whatever the case might be, or how do you get your kids educated and you don't have the necessary technology? We didn't think about any of those things, but all of those things we knew were issues before COVID. And so we have to be busy now, making sure that all those things are no longer an issue. And then we have to figure out how do we move our kids along at a high speed to get to the certain literacy rates that they need to be successful. And I'm not sure we're using the right measurements for that or the right curriculums and things of that nature. And so we need to have those conversations.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. So when you're saying that we failing or have failed, already was failing, is that based on standardized testing?
Yeah, that is all testing, absolutely.
So we are under the curve when it comes to that.
Yeah, and not everybody fares well on those types of tests. That's something that's been historically talked about as well too.
So do you think that's something that should be changed?
I think we definitely should consider what other options to engage with kids to determine where they are on their continuum. If it were up to me, every kid would have what we call IEPs, individualized education plans. Everybody would have one. Why can't everybody have one, right? And then you match that education plan with the right educators. And now those kids get what they want, and we don't have to worry about putting kids in a space where they're behind their peers. They're where they need to be based on their needs and already developed skills.
So what would that take? Would that take more money?
It's going to take a lot of money. Any kind of change in school takes money, right? So it's going to take some money, but it really is going to take some collaboration. It's going to have some collaboration with the community. What does the community really want? And I'm willing to bet we have that data because the community's been asked a lot of questions. And then how do we put those things in place in collaboration with organizations that are in our community that have this type of money or provide these type of services? How can we work together to get the kids and the educators what they need?
So you talk about the curriculum. Do you think the curriculum needs to be changed as far as classes they offer, or?
It would be interesting.
Or not, maybe not changed or added.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I don't know what needs to be changed because I haven't been in every school. Sometimes one school does this thing and another school does another thing. But we could add some things to get more creative and get kids to be more curious, or teachers to even be more curious about where they really want to go. When I was growing up, we had access to what we would call trade schools. And we could go into, we called it like a rec. So we can go over and leave school and go do photography, nursing. You could take a golf class, like all these things to just kind of get you to be curious about who you are. And we all know that there's a deficit in the trades. So welding was something we also got to do. We need welders, we need nurses, we need nurse practitioners, right? All those are trades, respiratory therapists. How can we be curious about getting kids access to that? And maybe teachers want to teach that. How do we get curious about working with the different industries that are already in our back pocket?
So I mean, even things like life things, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot of things I didn't know about life that I could have been in school learning about life. Now I'm learning it now. Yeah. I'm on YouTube. I'm paying for it because I don't know about it. You know, so somebody benefiting off of me being ignorant, basically. In my opinion, you know, we should have more of those in school. Agree. We should have more taxes. You know, we should
financial
have more
fitness and.
I mean, even like stuff with like banks. You know, a lot of people don't know how to not mess up their bank and how troubling it is to get a new bank account after you know, simple stuff like that as a young adult growing up. Things you might not make mistakes. You might not do something stupid, you know, with a check or something like that if you know how serious it is. You know? But you just never know. Unless your parents is telling you, but you know, in the school system, we can't leave it to the parents necessarily. But I just think taxes, what else? A few other things that we need in life, though, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was talking recently with some friends, and we were like, how can we teach kids about day trading or budgeting, right? Or how to run your house if you become a homeowner. These are the things that you have to kind of expect to be responsible for. And I was like, those are life skills, as you were saying. Also, how do we teach kids to emotionally manage themselves, right? How do you deal with if you overdraft your bank account, right? You can't get mad and run in the bank and just get to yelling. That's not how that's going to work. But you could call and have a conversation with a banker and tell them, I had no idea. Could you educate me on this? And they may give you some leniency, right? And then give you a little bit of education. But how do we do that kind of stuff ahead of time? I agree that those things need to happen, and they used to happen in certain parts of the United States. That's the kind of stuff we had access to when I was a kid. Now, your parents had to opt you in, right? But we don't even have the option for parents to even opt them in. How can we get curious about actually educating our kids that will help them develop their best self?
Yeah. Do we have higher learning classes?
We have opportunities like Avid and things like that where you can, when you're in high school, you can take college level credits. And then there are smaller programs in middle schools that give them some access to like junior achievement, but those kids are doing well academically for the most part. And so some kids are getting left out of the opportunity because they're not doing well academically, but they may actually do much better if we can get them attached to those type of opportunities.
But that's offered throughout Minneapolis?
Not all schools participate, I can tell you that. But it is a Minnesota thing, it's not just Minneapolis. Park Center offers Avid over in their school as well too.
You think it's important for teachers to look like the students?
I do. And there's some data that actually talks about black teachers, black educators in particular, and how much better all kids do when there are black educators a part of their environment, not just one or two, a significant amount actually making a difference. The other thing is we got to get more black educators. I know we talk about, man, we got to make sure we retain our educators of color. They're as rare as clinicians of color. And so we got to get more kids, more young people interested. But the visuals right now of being an educator is not something folks are interested in. So how do we get kids interested in becoming teachers anymore, right? I haven't had a kid.
Money.
That too.
Get them some money.
Yeah, money, and they gotta see that they'll be treated well too, right?
Yeah.
There's some things, some optics we need to change as well.
They gotta see that they're important too. Like they're a big deal. A lot of kids want to be ball players, football. You know. Yeah. Like of course it's sports, but they're big deals. Yeah. You know, they looked at as big deals. So I think we gotta. I don't know how necessarily a quick fix, but we have to start looking at teachers
like a big deal.
Yeah, like the common teacher.
I love that you said that. There are a few nations outside the United States where teachers are a big deal, and those nations are doing really well.
No, because they are. You know, you do spend more time off the time when they leave school. You know, they correcting papers and stuff at home. So I don't know what type of hours they putting on the sheets, but I know it ain't adding up.
No, I promise you it's not adding up. And that's something else we need to do about too, right? When my boss right now goes home, if she wants to pick up her work and do it, it's an option.
Right.
Teachers go home, they should go home. So their planning time or grading time, however we're going to give them more time to get those types of things done at home. So when they go home, they can be parents, right? Or whoever it is, they need to be spouses or in that case.
Gender. I'm gonna talk about gender a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out my words so I don't say them, the wrong words. But the bathrooms, they're making the
gender
bathroom.
neutral or
neutral gender bathroom. Is that what they're?
Yeah, gender neutral.
What do you think about that?
Again, that's something that you got to talk to your community about. Everybody's not comfortable with that, right? When we force things,
is that okay for kids?
You got to talk to the parents. Yeah. So we're in a different day. Gender neutral bathrooms would have never come up in conversation when I was a kid, right? Yeah. But I can see the benefit sometimes for me when I'm in public, when I see dads with their kids and they need to go to the bathroom. Right. They need to go to the bathroom. They have a daughter, but they don't want to go in the men's. They need to have an option. There are people who show up and they may have been born and had to check a box, but they feel or they present differently. They need to have an option. They need to feel comfortable. At the same time, we got to keep everybody safe. So how are we creating equity in that? My big thing is equity. If you can't address everybody's need and you're only addressing a few, that's not equity, right? I'm not good on all the gender labels and that. I identify as Black, woman, queer. And I think people have the opportunity, they should be able to identify how they want, but we need to have a bigger conversation around what's good for our kids. But you got to include the kids and their parents in that. We shouldn't be making that decision, right? Because my kids aren't going to that school, right? But they need to be involved, and kids will tell you what they want and what they need, right? Yeah.
But as an adult, though, do you feel like it's a certain age when that stuff should be exposed to children, or is it middle school, is it high school, is it
I can only speak from my parent perspective, and one of the things that for me
and I'm sorry not to cut you off, not so much the gender neutral bathroom.
I got you.
Some of the allowing anybody to go into any bathroom they want to go in, basically.
Yeah, I don't know if we're doing that in Minneapolis either. I'm gonna check on that. But
so allowing a trans to go into a men's bathroom,
or a woman's bathroom. Again, you've got to talk to your community. I'll say this from my parent perspective. So I was raised on very strict religious cultural beliefs. So my mother was Pentecostal. For those who don't know that, look that up. My father was Baptist. And for those who don't know that, so it's a big clash there, right? And Southern Baptist at that. And so we were raised to not wear pants. You can't date, when you get to date, you can't date anybody outside the church. Those kinds of rules we were raised up under, right? And when you go to the bathroom, you go with your sister. You don't go by yourself, right? Different time. But we are, as a culture, as a people, we're coming into, and as people, when I say people, I mean all people, we're coming into some new awareness, right? That we had people feeling confined because we already weren't doing things that were equitable. We were trying to shut people's feelings and how they wanted to show up down, right? You have to conform. Now, because we've kind of taken that, you don't have to conform away, it seems like there's so much, right? And it's like all coming to you at one time. But you really got to listen to your population of people. For me, as a parent, I always want to tell my kids something first, right? Even if it's something about me, you're going to hear or see something, I want to have a conversation with you so I understand where you are and you can understand where I am, and we can make a decision. Now, I couldn't have those type of conversations with my kids when they were 2 and 3, right? They weren't developmentally there because we hadn't had those experiences. Now I have a 7-year-old niece where she's asking all the questions. Isn't he a boy? Why does he have on a skirt, right? And so now I have to slow down, and her mom and dad have to do it too, and explain to her why he gets to do that and why he feels like the way he feels, and give her some context. I don't know that there's an appropriate age when your kids are ready and they're asking. That seems like an appropriate time to have the conversation. Yeah.
So, I mean, what about like sports though?
Yeah, that's a big deal right now too.
Yeah, it's also talk about how trans are allowed to
in some parts
and play sports against other women.
Or other men.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I don't know if it's so much a big deal for us yet here in Minnesota, but it will be. And again, that's a hard one, right? Because we are groomed to believe that men and women in particular we have different systems, right? My body gives me the capability to do a certain amount of things because I'm a woman. I mean, your body gives you the capability to do certain things. Like if we sat here and arm wrestled, you probably would beat me. I don't have the strength to arm wrestle you, right? It would take me some building up to some muscle and some confidence to even want to actually jump in the ring with you and arm wrestle.
Yeah.
I struggle with the science behind how we're finely tuned and the lack of being able to give context to where we are. We haven't had real conversations about anything. We just get ecstatic about something or we get upset about something and we want to make a policy around it. And you haven't talked to anybody, right? There's some young men or some young women right now who identify as young men or young women, but weren't born that way, and they want to participate with their peers. We need to have a conversation about what does participating with their peers look like. And in that conversation, can't just be us adults, my age and older, because we're going to taint it with old beliefs and old ways, and we're going to keep people still confined.
Yeah.
And then my little nieces and nephews will have to have this conversation again.
Yeah.
But we got to stop avoiding it. Right now, we want to avoid it. We don't want to have it. It's a hard conversation, but let's bring the data and the science and bring all the learned experience we have as adults with the kids and have a real conversation on what that looks like. Yeah. And make equitable rules that can be altered as they need to.
Yeah, for sure. I like that though. You know, equity is when everybody's needs is
yeah.
met, you know,
we don't know how to do that. Yeah. We haven't ever done it.
Somebody gets left out. You know, it seems like majority gets left out.
The majority gets left out. Absolutely.
So back to the school board. Being on the school board, are you guys able to? What do you guys encourage? Are you guys saying like bring the kids in on the conversation, or what are you guys able to do to help change? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, we got a million ideas, and that's another thing I think should be a class in school. If we knew what political roles were, you know, if we would, we don't, unless it's the president, we don't really know much.
Yes.
You know, we don't even know all of the levels and the tiers. So that'll be something instead of history that ain't really history, you know.
Yeah, that's I like that idea. I'm gonna introduce that idea. That's a great idea. Because to be honest with you, when I did the research on school boards, the community is supposed to drive the school boards. You want the kids that have gone through the school system, you want them to go off to college or whatever they do to make money, establish themselves in your community, and come back and be on that board. Yeah. That's who should be on the board, young parents, right? Yeah. Oftentimes throughout the nation, lawyers and doctors, all kind of big wigs, political folks are on these school boards, but we're making decisions that are way up here and are not equitable down here on the ground. We need people that are in the community on the school board. So I'm gonna say that part. So that definitely needs to happen. As to your first point though, how can we be curious? I am about being curious, right? What we've done with school to date hasn't worked, right? You can say that in any part of the country. It hasn't worked for the majority. That's not equity. And so we have to stop and go, what things have worked and what is not serving us anymore? And what can serve us so that it can bring up our community? I guarantee you that if we put some kids and some parents and some teachers and some community members in a room, we will come up with a great opportunity for kids to get some political exposure, right? Some trade exposure, some life skill development, right? But as long as we kind of do school over here, where you just do math, reading, and make me a good employee, well, what we've learned in the last few years with COVID is that people don't want to be your regular employee anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that's just what we learned from COVID. I feel like I learned that before.
Yeah, brother.
Know, people don't want to work.
Like your normal way of doing things, business as usual.
Work up under, as I should say.
Yeah. What else can we be doing? When I was growing up in the South, most of my family are entrepreneurs. They own something, right? They don't work for anyone. When I come to the North, there's less of that here happening and more folks working for other people. We can do both.
And that like it should be the opposite too, as you said that.
A community, it would be my belief that if we had more entrepreneurs, we'd probably be doing better as a nation. That's just my little bitty old podunk little rock belief. I don't know that to be the data that I don't have any data that supports that, but we definitely need to have more entrepreneurs in all types of ways, right? One, to be able to give young people exposure to. I recently realized in going to physical therapy, I had an inner ear infection, that there's a physical therapist that specializes in inner ear infections. That's a trade. I'm not even gonna tell you how much I paid him.
Oh. No, yeah, though, I just think that's huge, though,
Yeah.
bringing that type of stuff into the school system.
Yeah. Why not? We have plenty of space. We have lots of unused footprints in Minneapolis where we can be curious about and make some money. Minneapolis also needs to make some money. So how can we get some people to move in, offer those opportunities, and pay a low rent? Right.
What do you think about schools being in this city with a lot of crime and things like that? Like, is that like a lost cause? Like, is there nothing we can do about that as far as our kids?
Yeah.
You know, we got school like, I ain't even gonna say no names, but we got schools that's right in the middle of action. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not a lost cause, but the school, we can't be timid, and we can't not offer solutions, and we can't be closed, right? And I'm not talking about like summer closure and things of that nature, but like, I'm gonna say this, and not because you don't get it, but I want people to hear this. There are no failing school systems in neighborhoods and communities that are doing well, right? And you can take a drive around Minnesota and see that. And so, why can't Minneapolis have that, right? There's going to be crime. We're not going to ever eliminate crime, right? Jumping on the train without paying, that's a crime, right? How can we bring crime down but increase the safety and the well-being and the learning in schools, right? When we have that equal balance, we actually don't talk about crime the way we do. We talk about community safety again. Now we're talking about crime, right? We're timid and the schools are closed. And we have, in our part of town, we have community schools. Community members that are retired should be in there reading books or serving lunch or helping with homework. That's not happening because they don't feel safe. So it's a twofold conversation. What the heck has happened at schools that kids can't get there and get there safely, right? And or feel safe when they get there. And I'm not leaving out any adults in that equation. And then how come community isn't participating more in our schools and our community?
That's what I was gonna ask. How do we make that happen? Like, what is the process of becoming in these positions that you say lawyers and big people?
Yeah, so school board is anybody. Like, I really want that to be clear. As long as you're of age,
you apply? Or?
Yeah, you can throw your name in and pitch a bid and raise you some money and get, campaign and all that stuff. You could run. I honestly, I shouldn't be the one in Minneapolis that's running. I would love to have somebody who's 25, just out of college. That, you know what I mean? I also think students could play a bigger part that are actually in school. How can they influence the school board and the decisions that they're making throughout the year? How can we pick some student leaders from 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade to partner with the school board? That's how we'll get that youth voice. There's student government, yes. And there are two.
Will they vote and
and there are 2 people on the board right now. 2 youth usually sit on the board seat, in 2 board seats. But we need more of a youthful influence, trust me. And our board isn't littered with a lot of political folks, like, right? Most of those folks that are on there are from community. Like, very few of them are like some big wig at Best Buy or something like that and decided they were gonna come and be on our school board. Most of those folks are community driven. We need more of that, and we need to get younger, right? So we can kind of stay ahead of some of these things like gender neutral bathrooms and trans kids being able to play on the different teams and based on how they identify. Younger folks would help us with those conversations.
Do you guys have anything to do with like the alumni groups?
Like
sports and stuff?
I'm not sure that there's intentional connections outside.
You guys don't govern that?
No. We only govern for what's happening in the school year for the Minneapolis public school system.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever the rules are, like whatever's going to happen in 55411, we govern those rules, or whatever the zip code might be.
So when the teachers were on strike, what would be you guys' role during that?
So I'm not going to speak as an expert because I wasn't part of it, but it's not a negotiation. Yeah. At that point, you're all trying to figure out and be curious on how to end this strike.
So you're going on both sides, seeing what they want.
Yeah. Okay. And to be honest with you, that's the stuff I love, right? But why did it take to get to a strike? If we were already having those conversations with those great stakeholders, we could have avoided that, right? And maybe we were having those conversations, but we weren't hearing what was really being said. How can we prevent those things by doing some other creative things, right? How do we talk about educator salaries, and how do we talk about tenure, and how do we talk about classroom size, because that was a big deal, in ways that are healthy and include those teachers and include those families who are going to be impacted by those decisions.
Would you say school is outdated though right now?
Oh yeah, man, come on. It doesn't work. Yeah. When anything that, I don't care what it is, and they can data this to death. If you're not addressing everybody's need, we don't have equity. And we're making this big equity push in Minnesota, and so I think we need to have real conversations on what equity is, right? If it only works for 10 people and there's 30, it's not equity, right? And then that's a hierarchy we're setting up there, right? And now you got teachers that are underpaid and undervalued and overworked. Yeah. All those things can be preventative with the right honest conversations, right? This is what we have in the budget. This is what we need, right? Who can we be talking to?
So if you I know you said a lot for sure, but if you just had to say specifically to this question, what would you be bringing to the school board?
There's a couple of things. I have this magic skill I was telling you about, and it's to be able to have hard conversations or just have conversations with anyone, regardless of your race, class, background, status, wherever you are. It doesn't affect the conversation. And I'm able to then bring people into this space to have these really uncomfortable conversations. Let's really talk about trans kids, right? I can hold that. Mm-hmm. Where right now, no one can hold that. It's a fight. Right, I mean, we don't have time for the fight. So I can bring these special negotiation skills and build relationships. One of the things that I'm really, and I'll end with this one, is this practice of repair, right? Minneapolis School District needs to do some repair around the promise that's been broken to deliver a quality education. And so that repair starts in-house, though. It starts with the board being able to get along with one another and do the work they need to do together, and then how to do that work with the superintendent, and how do we do that and move healthy with the schools, right? Knowing that we're not going to fix anything this next school year, right? There's too much to be fixed at one time. So what are 2 or 3 things we want as wins this year, right? It can't be, let's go win teachers and kids back.
How long is the term?
4 years.
4 years?
Right? Okay. We've lost kids and teachers historically, and this year being the worst, this last couple of years being the worst. And so you have to rest where you are, right? What is not working for us so that we can make it work to get people to organically trust and come back? We're not going to win anybody back because we can't fix all of this at one time.
When you say lost students and teachers, talk a little more about that.
Yeah. So teachers, parents, and kids and teachers are opting out of teachers. I'll start with teachers. Teachers are opting out of teaching. Like they're just leaving teaching. In Minneapolis. Okay. Some teachers are choosing to teach and are leaving the district. Right? Some teachers are choosing not to teach at all, and they're just going into a whole nother industry. Leaves us with we already had a teacher crisis. Leaves us with a bigger teacher crisis. We also don't have enough subs. Again, remember I talked about there's not enough people wanting to be teachers. So there's not enough subs to back up the holes and the gaps that we have in just teachers, right? And then the teachers, nor the subs, nor any professional development staff or support staff feel supported or heard, and especially our teachers of color, in the Minneapolis School District in particular. And so they're leaving. Who wouldn't leave? If I worked at my organization and I felt like I was being mistreated and I wasn't valued and I wasn't getting paid on top of all that and I'm overworked, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go somewhere where I'm gonna get those things that I need, right? Kids are making the same decisions. They're talking to their parents. Listen, it used to be about the team. I'm not getting enough playing time. Now it's about these teachers, right? Yeah. And kids are exiting, right? That's a problem, right? Because regardless of whether or not we want to say it, Minneapolis Public Schools is a business. And when your clients leave, you can't pay your bills. You can't pay your teachers
I just don't understand. I mean, I know it's happening just now, but like if the number of teachers is slowly getting skimmer and skimmer. It should be money freeing up. You know, I feel like
it should be money freeing up. No, but and there probably is some money in the budget to hire some teachers. There always is. There's money built in for when teachers leave during out the year and things like that, because you have to have that in order to hire other people. But there's nobody wanting to come, and that's going to be our biggest problem. The strike told a story, and it told a story to the entire nation, and it really told a story to Minneapolis teachers and students. And so we have to reverse that story. We promised, right? The promise, the education, right, is this promise that I'll be able to I'll do better. I can do better in life, and I'll be successful. But we aren't giving our kids that foundational education. So we broke a promise. We've broken a promise to the teachers, then the kids. And so we have to be busy about reconciling or repairing, I like to say, that promise, and then putting practices and things in place that people will want to come back, right? You don't have to even go out and do bells and whistles. They'll see your work. They live right here. There's not a parent that wants to send their kids to Hopkins or, right? Oh, that's not what you grew, right? I want my kids to go to the school I went to, right? But if the school I went to can't provide the needs and can't support my student, I got to do this best.
That's what I grew up in. When I was in school, they had recently started the Choice is Yours program.
Yep.
So we was losing all of our kids.
Yep.
I hated it, you know, for obviously just sports reasons, you know. But kids, it was hard to get kids. I was at North, and our population drastically dropped year after year after year.
Yeah.
Like, until I don't know if we graduated with 100 kids.
Right on. Right on.
You know? But yeah, people do want to feel. They want to feel like they're sending their kids somewhere where they're there for 8 hours or 6 hours, however long a school day is, that they're getting something out of it.
Yeah, and their long-term goals will be met. Like if they want to go to college, they can go. They see a path to college. If they want to go to trade, they see a path to career. If they want to own a business, they see a path to entrepreneurship, and they have these loving adults that want to help them get there. Yeah, our kids don't feel like that.
Yeah. It should almost kind of be like therapy. I feel like
when you walk into a school building, you should be like,
what I want to do.
Here.
You know, as long as I ain't hurting nobody doing nothing wrong, what I want to do. How do I want to be my future to be?
And there should be adults in there partnering with you to
even
unpack
if you
that.
Change every day.
In college, you actually do that because you weren't given the opportunity. So many people go through the first year of college like changing your focus and dropping this class. We could have gotten some of that for you in that K-12 opportunity, right? Yeah. We missed it. How do we give it back, right? And not for the betterment of institutions making a profit, but for the betterment of the community, right? How do we help that individual be their best self in the end game? How does that bring up the community? Because it's both and, right? People start feeling good, it feels different, right? When I remember when I first moved here, it was a little funny a little bit for a couple of years, but then it started to like calm down. And I remember walking down Plymouth and people just smiling, walking down, they're gonna go shoot hoops or whatever. And I'm like, hey, people smiling. Man, I can't hardly catch a smile right now, right?
Like ain't nothing funny.
Ain't nothing funny right now.
Ain't nothing funny. Would this be your first political position?
Yeah, I hadn't, not something I dreamed about, talked about ever. I just feel like it's my responsibility because of the way I've already been serving. And so I need to take that learning and really bring it to people to scale and figure out what we can do on a wide scale for Minneapolis.
When did you decide to run?
I want to say it was early summer. I talked it over with my family first, my daughter and my partner, because you know, my name got me get thrown around and things of that nature, and I wanted to see how they feel about that, and they were like, we can see you doing that. And then I called my mother. That's what I told you. I don't know if I told you, but my mom is like my go-to. If my mom says no, it's a no. And I called her, and she was like, it's about time. I said, all right.
She asked how much they pay?
No, she didn't. I didn't even know they paid until recently. But no, she didn't. My mom is she's like queen of literacy and such a big believer in early childhood education. And she's like, you need to get in there and you need to make sure that people are doing what's best for kids. And I was like, all right. And so I think I can do that. I think I can help do what's best for kids.
I was talking with Dewana Witt.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to meet her. One of my suggestions again for the schools, that would be a collaboration.
Yeah. So Hennepin County Sheriff has a junior sheriff program.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, a lot of the inner city kids don't get involved because they don't know.
Right.
And it leads you to a career track if you want to happen to actually be a sheriff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
And they offer that in Minneapolis?
You can actually get, it doesn't even matter where you live, as long as you live in Hennepin County.
Okay. So that's outside of the school, like a program.
It's outside of the school. Yep, you have to partner.
Somehow, because you know it's so hard to get kids after the bell ring. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. But imagine the empowerment that could be if kids could. When I grew up, people used to want to be the police. I want to be the police. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. I don't hear any of that anymore.
Yeah. Right.
We need good quality police officers and sheriffs that are from our community. Those are, again, community seats that people don't think you have access to. They need to be younger people. There need to be people of all races and creeds and backgrounds and experience need to be in those type of positions. But how do we get them access, right? You make a great point, she makes a great point. It's a great opportunity, and it empowers kids to see that role differently and how they can make impact, right? But if you don't give them the opportunity, we're gonna make the assumption, right, that the sheriff is the police and they're bad too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or all police are bad. I know some amazing police officers. They look like me and you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And every day they put that uniform on, it's a conflict. And they want more young people to hear from them.
Yeah.
Right? How do we connect everybody?
That's why I think it's so huge, because if the youth is able to interact with them on a daily basis, on a friendly level, like before it becomes an issue.
Facts.
You know, I feel like that's small solutions, small gains with the whole community thing. I feel like it all ties in.
It all ties in.
Yes, we need people to be teachers. We also need people to be officers, and they all need to be from the community, or majority.
Yes.
But I don't think we get that unless we start bringing that to them early somehow.
It has to be.
In a cool way.
It has to be.
It has to be. Like, not boring though.
Yeah. I would love for the Miss Pittman to show up out of uniform and have a circle opportunity with kids, right? Talk about how they feel about policing, how they feel about the sheriff, what do they know about the sheriff, and get real live feedback from her in that normal way, like we were sitting in our living room, right? But that leads to her being able to show up in her uniform, though, right? And still getting the same type of respect when she was out of uniform, because the kids see her, not the uniform, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like we had like Officer Adams at North,
Come on.
Somebody like him. I mean, I know he's in law enforcement, but I don't look at him like that, Like,
look, we run around here calling him Spain. Spain! Right? Like, I grew up with one of our community police officers lived down the block from us and actually did a good job keeping us in line when our parents weren't paying that much of attention, right? Or maybe they were in the house and we were, hey, you can't hit that ball in towards Mr. Jenkins' house, you're going to bust a window, right? We were able to take that direction from him because he showed up like a normal guy, but we knew he was the police,
Yeah, so now it's like, you guys are disconnected. You're not ever around, but then when you are around, it's crazy stories being heard.
Yeah.
So that distance, and like you say, you able to have those conversations. We need those conversations.
Absolutely need them on a regular basis with intention. Like, don't be setting people up to like take a firestorm of questions or hold one person accountable because of something. So, we're not gonna do that. And you're not going to also come in here and look at our kids like they're the problem either. How do we have a real good conversation and talk about what needs to change and how it can be changed?
Did you mention all the values and you were running on?
Yeah, the only other one is so wellness, the comprehensive district design. I want to see what we can do to make that fit. And if it can't fit, what pieces can and what can we throw out?
Say that again.
That's the comprehensive district design. So that's the new way of Minneapolis having schools over on the Minneapolis or the north side that have the same type of opportunities that the schools have on, say, on the west side or southwest side of town. By doing that, though, it wasn't a mirror, right? It wasn't like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this the same way we do this, this, and this over here. It was, we're gonna take this resource out of there because we need it over here. That's not equity. And so I've heard from quite a few people, and I have some friends that were impacted by this that live on that side of town where their child specialist, as an example, was removed because it's a budget thing. And so now they have to drive their kids somewhere else in order to get that type of opportunity. That's not equity. And you're not doing us any justice over here on the north side by doing that. You're actually putting neighborhoods against one another when we're all Minneapolis, right? When the news talks about Minneapolis, they're talking about Minneapolis, right? It doesn't matter where you live or your zip code. And so we just didn't do a good job, like I said earlier, listening to the community and hearing all of that. Like, people were saying that if you make this change, I'm going to lose this. And we're over here going, we need this. But how come we couldn't meet in the middle so that everybody got what they need? If they need an audiologist over Southwest, how come we can't just have one over North, right?
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing is knowing that everything is case by case, too.
True.
If people try to do like a cookie cutter type thing for a lot of things, that's just not. There
always should be room for one-offs, right?
Yeah.
Every now and then. So my grandmother worked for the Nebraska School for the Deaf and Blind. So obviously a lot of kids came with some they weren't able to see or they couldn't hear. That school specializes in that. Sometimes parents don't have access to that type of special school, and so that kid needs that specialty built into that school. That's something schools have to do as a one-off. But we should have a pool of folks, right? We shouldn't be like looking for people that we can give access no matter what part of town you're on to get that opportunity in your school.
And also, when they do like the budgets and things, do you guys help?
Yeah, we do. We do get to look at that. We do get to look at the budget's public too. I'm crossing my eyes because that budget
not
is
the number
like, wow.
amount, but where it goes to.
That's available. That's public information. But we do have those types of discussions. Yeah.
Because a lot of times I've heard they would try to do one size fit all type things, so they'll try to give each school the same amount of money. Well, if this school has this many kids versus this many kids.
Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah,
that ain't gonna work. Yeah, you do have to take that into account, and we have historically not done that well in any school system.
Sure. So being on the school board, you're able to basically, for one, just govern everything, make sure everybody doing what they're supposed to.
The money's where it's supposed to be. The rules are being followed. If things are amok, we address that with the superintendent and say,
Are you able to encourage them to bring kids in the room or bring for the decisions?
Absolutely. I think there should be more of that. I know it got a little off track this last school year, but I love seeing students voice their own voice, not an adult standing up saying what the kids should be invited into that space. They're part of the community. They're part of the decision making. How they address, say, the folks when they're talking, that could use some skill building. But also on the other side of the table, we can take some skill building for adults to learn to listen to kids, right? Those kids were frustrated. Some kids got frustrated. And like adults, their words changed. They're just words, right? Nobody's gonna hurt anyone. How could we have given them the skills before they got there in frustration? Even if they show up in frustration, now they have something different to show up with. They can show up with some data, right, or something like that. Yeah.
For sure.
But definitely, Kate, I'm saying it now. I've already said it. This process needs young people. I am for kids. Period.
Yeah.
Like period. And if we're talking about kids and we're not talking with kids, I'm leaving the conversation.
Yeah. And just knowing what they want and what's gonna keep their attention. So like, if we need to have a community event where we need the kids, we gotta get them in the room.
Yeah.
And that's what I like for this space here. I try to, I don't know a better word right now, but trick them, almost. We entertain them, but still give them something to walk away with.
Yeah, right on.
Kids need to be entertained. They got to come through and they got to want to come somewhere. Otherwise you're going to do all this for nothing.
Listen,
they're going to show up.
We do it for ourselves as adults, right? We want to be entertained, right? Yeah. And I want to take away something in each of my experiences too. Why wouldn't we think kids want the exact same thing? Funny story, and I won't say where I saw this, but I was in an adult environment and they had walking desks. You ever seen those? Like it's like a treadmill, but you're walking and there's a desktop.
I think I might have seen a little video or something maybe like that.
And I was like, this is cool, but why aren't there any of these in our schools? Our kids want to get up, right? How do we integrate some of that stuff in for kids? Because like you got frustrated at your desk and you want to get up from your desk and go to the walking desk. There's a kid right now who is learning how to do school. He's learned how to do school online for the last 2 years. He's in first grade now, and his body is a little busy, right? How come he can't have a walking desk or the opportunity to engage?
More money. That's more money. You try to spend all the money.
I'm trying to do what's best for kids.
No, for sure. had to leave, any leaving remarks, I should say?
Yeah. Vote August 9th. Primaries. It's the Minnesota primary race. Not a lot of attention is being put on anything outside of Congress because we have Ilhan and Don running for our area. And so that's a big deal. Yes, that's a big deal. And there's the school board election, right? And so voting and showing up for a primary, it needs to be a habit, something we need to teach our kids. And we need to vote for who's best for kids. I think that's me, but make the vote who's best for kids at your local ballot box.
Sure. I did miss a question. As far as curriculum, have you seen like they're trying to come with like hip hop curriculum?
I know some schools do that in after school programming.
I don't know who does it, but I've been seeing a little bit of it online.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that'd be awesome. Yeah, there's college courses based off of hip hop. So like, yes, we totally need that in our young people's environment.
Yeah.
It creates, music fundamentally does something for learning. All music types. And we don't have enough of that in schools. That'd be a great opportunity for exposure and get your creative thought out, right? So absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you making it, having it.
My mouth all dry.
Yeah. That's what happens when we talk.
Talk a lot. Yeah.
But I appreciate you though showing up. A lot of times people don't show up in space, and the first thing we got to do is have conversations. So I support you, and wish you the best.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you.